So Investigation with Dr. T was the brainchild of our dean, Dr. Kimberly Durham. She said, do you think that you could do some type of an ongoing podcast about criminal justice? And I said, yeah, of course, definitely. And so that's sort of how it all started. So I thought that this year, what I would do is sort of call it the empowerment season. I really want to highlight and validate these folks who have turned their lives around. For the last season, we had on folks like Gregory Boyle from Homeboy Industries. He's a Jesuit priest who runs the largest gang rehabilitation program in the country. Let's look at folks who have actually succeeded at Homeboy, for example, and have a homeboy and a homegirl come on the show and talk about their experiences being in a gang. What was that like? What attracted them to Homeboy? And how has their lives changed and turned around as a result of it? This is really awesome. Justice restored, life after exoneration. And so I have an exoneree coming on, Willie McDonald. Willie was incarcerated wrongfully. I want to really zero in on what was that like for Willie. Dr. Barry Ryman, who is the clinical director at Recovery Unplugged, and Richie Supa, who is a former band member of Aerosmith. To have them both come on, talk about addiction, and talk about music. He's going to talk about how music as a modality can really be effective in helping addicts fight addiction. And of course, we're going to have student spotlight, former alum, etc., on some really cool and interesting topics. We are going to bring back Unfound, Ed Denzel, most definitely. This season of empowerment, like the gangs, former gang members, former folks who are incarcerated, and folks who struggle with addiction. I think that those are just really important for folks to hear, and our students to hear, and even our faculty to hear. So we always do this trigger warning, because we're talking about some stuff that's it's not very pretty. I'm so thrilled that I have two of our amazing detectives from our local area. One is from Wilton Manors Police. The other is from the Davie Police. Detective Franz Pettipapa is an accomplished law enforcement professional with over 25 years of experience. Wait a second, guys. There, keep that back up there. All right. He began his career as correction officer with the State of Florida Department of Corrections in 1996, and throughout his career, Detective Pettipapa has contributed significantly to public safety, served on the Multi-Agency Gang Task Force, Southeast Regional Domestic Security Task Force, and the Broward County Internet Crime Against Children Task Force. Currently, Detective Pettipapa is assigned to the FBI's Public Corruption and Hate Crime Task Force. Also with us tonight is Detective Adam Granite. He's been with the Davie Police Department since February 1996. I think that's pretty cool that you both really kind of started something important in 1996, and has been a police officer since June of 2000, detective since October of 2010. In 2012, he was assigned to the Special Victims Unit, where he was tasked with handling internet crimes against children and human trafficking. Detective Granite is a member of the South Florida Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, the FBI's Violent Crimes Against Children's Task Force. And Detective Granite is also responsible for handling the department's digital forensics. He holds an AA from Broward College in Criminal Justice, a BA from Florida Atlantic University in CJ, with a minor in Public Administration, and drumroll, master's from Nova Southeastern University in Public Administration. Please give me a big round of applause for our two guests who are here tonight with me. Where is, there he is. Okay. I can't seem to find where Franz went.
Hey, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I know, I see you. So let me, do you have your camera on?
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
why I didn't see you, Franz. Your camera wasn't on. So there's Adam, who's in outer space. It looks great. But Franz, you just need to turn your camera on, okay?
Okay, it is on.
it's not on. I mean, it's not showing on our side. You know, when I look at the participants, it's got like a, you know, a little camera with a, it's
Oh,
red.
okay.
It's got a big line through it. You see it?
Yes.
All right, cool. Well, as you get that going, I want to just welcome you both. My name is Dr. Grace Telesco. I'm the director of the School of Criminal Justice and an associate professor here and a host of this show, The Investigation with Dr. T. So without any further ado, and while Franz is trying to locate his camera, which, by the way, up there he is, got it, great.
Here we go.
Okay, there he is, fabulous. Franz, I'm going to ask you to go first then, okay, if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about, you know, because don't forget, we have criminal justice students, right? And they all want to do what you're doing, what the both of you are doing. And as soon as I'm sure that when they start hearing the word FBI and task force, they're like, that's what I want to do. So it's always really good to have role models like yourselves, mentors like yourself, to show these students who are, you know, the young generation, you know, what is it that attracts us to law enforcement? What is it that we're hoping to do and accomplish? And then we'll get into your work. So first we'll start with you, Franz, and then we'll go to Adam.
Yes. Well, I'm Franz Pettipapa, and basically I started law enforcement in '96, like I said. Now, since we do have young adults here, I'm going to talk about my past just a little bit to show how my past basically guided me for the future and also taught me a lot of lessons. So when I was young, I used to love to drive cars, speed, and do all kind of things. So needless to say, I received a few citations. So I tried to get in the police field right out of high school. But no police department wanted to touch me, obviously, because of my history with my driving record. So I had to take a job with Florida Department of Corrections, which is obviously I worked at the maximum security female prison out west. It's no longer there now. And it was a really, really tough job. And it basically got me prepared for what I'm doing now. Because working in correction taught me what we call verbal judo, how to talk to these inmates, how to talk to inmates to their level, and at the same time educating them. So that helped me out a lot in the process. So after 2 years with Department of Correction, I applied for a few police departments, and City of Wilton Manors was looking for diversity, you could say. Wilton Manors actually was the City of Fort Lauderdale didn't have any Haitian speaking officers, and they actually really wanted to hire me. And then Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors decided that, hey, we really want this guy because of the Haitian population. So they were the first one to offer me this position, and I took it. In my heart, I always had inspired to work with kids and youth. So after 2 years working road patrol, I became a school resource officer. I was a school resource officer for around 5 to 6 years. After that, I basically just worked my way up and became a detective.
Fabulous, fabulous. All right, let's get Adam in here and find out, you know, what attracted you to policing, to law enforcement, to this career that you have now.
So I started my college trying to do the criminal justice role and was getting feedback from all the jobs that I was applying for at different agencies that really wasn't the degree to go for at the time. Public administration was probably better. So I continued down that road, and while doing that, I started with the Davie Police Department as a college intern and worked my way to a police service aide next. And as a service aide, I got to work in dispatch, and I got to work calls on the road. I went to the Service Aid Academy. I went to the Service Aid Academy and learned basically half the police academy, what it was to do out on the road. Went out on the road as a service aide, handled crashes, investigations, and then was able to apply for the job as police officer and went to the police academy in 2000. So that was my transition to police, from service aide to police officer. And then while on the road as an officer, I was kind of tasked with handling juveniles, like juvenile arrests and monitoring juvenile crime. So that became my forte for a while because nobody else kind of wanted to handle that. So I handled that and truancy. And at that point, around 2010, I've made the application to become a detective. And I was accepted into the Detective Bureau. And in about 2012, my boss basically described it as the short end of the stick because I was a junior man in Special Victims Unit and said, here, go figure out what this Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force is and figure out how we can be a part of it.
That's
And
great.
from there, it grew into a really good career.
That's great. I'm so glad, Adam, that you're saying this for any of our students that are listening, because we did an internship. It was an unpaid internship over the summer for our undergrads, and they participated. And then one of them actually was able to get a police, what did you call it? A service
Police
aid?
service aid. Yeah.
So she applied. She was able to apply, and I haven't talked to her since, so I don't know how it went down and if she's getting it or not. But it was a great trajectory, great path.
They
So-
tried to talk me out of it, and I'm glad they didn't because it was literally half the police academy. So when I went back to do the police academy the second time, it was much easier.
Great. That's super. Good. So for all of our students who are out there listening, internships are really important. I mean, I think that's not only do you make some connections and networking happens, but you get to put that on your resume. And if you really are interested in ultimately a job with the police department, doing the internship there, get your foot in the door. So Franz, here's the hard part. And Adam too, you'll be next. So Franz, look, you're doing some really good work, but it's really difficult. It's difficult work, right? Do you want to speak about that? Like, maybe just kind of tell us, you don't have to go into any of your cases or anything like that if you don't want to, but just sort of like, what is this that you're involved in, and you're involved in investigating? What's the process? And then Adam will be up next. Oh, I muted you. And the reason that I muted you was because I think I was getting some feedback from something else that I think it was like a delay because you were maybe watching the program or something. So once you get that shut off, then we won't get an echo. And then you can unmute yourself and tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly of internet crimes against children and the work that you're involved in.
Yes, ma'am. I'm glad I have Adam here because he could relate to a lot of things I'm going to say. With internet crime against children, the same way he mentioned that, it was put on my plate. I'm a very techie guy. I enjoy messing around with the internet and the IP address and understanding the concept of all these different things. Our sergeant who was in charge of it at one point, he decided that, hey, I feel like it was right up your alley because we used to work with juveniles and you could understand the concept of all this. It is a hard investigation. Average investigation could actually take 6 months. When we're talking about just finding all these different things that you need in order to tie it in together to make sure that this person that you are trying to put a case on would not walk, or you messing up something simple that this person ended up cleaning out, or whatever the case may be. I became a grandfather, let's say 7, 8 years ago. So I'm a grandfather of 3. So when you sit there and you actually have to review videos and pictures of children getting assaulted or watching these videos and pictures, and then you have to articulate it in a probable cause affidavit, this is probably the hardest part of actually doing this type of investigation. Number one, once you finish reviewing those videos, at one point you have to walk away from looking at it so you could actually decompress and get your thoughts together, understand that there's a lot of good in this world and there's some evil in this world. So watching these videos is to actually prosecute the evil in this world. And that's the way that I have to present it to myself and actually get my mindset correctly to actually complete a full investigation in ICAC.
Wow. Adam, what's your experience in this? What can you agree with and what can you add to?
So I agree with Franz. It's hard to watch those videos, but you learn to get through them as quickly as possible to get the pertinent information out of them that you need for your affidavit to get through. And I set boundaries, like I try not to do it towards the end of the day before I'm going home, so it's not the last thing I'm remembering as I'm going home. So it's those are the kinds of things that you try to set ahead of time so that you're not stuck with those images and videos. And ultimately, the goal is to protect the child in the long run, and that's what you're striving for, is to protect the child or the children, to make sure that they're not harmed or harmed further anymore.
So one of the things that I think maybe some of our students don't understand or know, you could read about it, you can have a lecture on it, but now we're getting to the practitioners who are doing it. You know, they're doing the work. When you talk about the difficulty in investigating these types of crimes, can you tell us a little bit about, do you get a tip? How does it come to you? How do you catch the case, basically? Is it a complaint? Is it some type of a tip, an informant? How does it go down? And either one of you can answer that question, and both of you.
I would say the cool part about this is the fact that each picture have what we call a photo DNA, which is an identifying mark if the picture was already been documented. So if you try to post those pictures in any kind of social media website, any web browser, it would actually flag to the internet service provider. And then they would contact what we call NECMAC, which is the National Center for Exploited Children, and they would actually start the investigation. So then they would find out which task force to send it to. Remember, the Internet Crime Against Children is a national task force. So you have basically every single state have some sort of representative within the task force. So once you determine that it's in Florida, once it gets to Florida, then we could narrow it down to what city is this person coming from? Where's this IPs coming from? Now you find the city, now you basically deviate down to individual cities. And that's usually how we get our main bulk of this crimes and cases.
Great. Adam, you want to add anything?
Sure. So as Franz said, by federal law, every internet service provider is required to report child exploitation, child pornography, and human trafficking to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. If they don't, they deal with some severe fines and penalties for not doing that. So they are required to do that, and that's what's called a cyber tip, and that's how we get most of our cases. The cases are geolocated based on IP address to the location, and then sent to the task force to be investigated. And then from there, the detectives do their investigation based on the IP address to determine where the location is of the actual suspect, and then go from there. So most of our cases do come from the National Center. Some of my cases also come from the FBI's hotline, which is similar to the National Center's cyber tip line.
Does it ever come from patrol?
Yes. There are cases from patrol, and they do come in, but they're not, at least in our agency, they're not as much as the cyber tips from the National Center or from the FBI's hotline.
And then I guess here's another question, and this has to do maybe with registered sex offenders or something like that. But let's see. So Wilton Manors, it's a small little community on its own. And then you've got Davie Police, also Davie, the town of Davie. Little small, not small. I mean, you know, it's relative. I come from NYPD, so it's, you know, like massive, right? Even the difference between that BSO, let's say, or any of the sheriff's departments and little towns. But how often do you find the perpetrator or suspect in your actual city? Franz?
Well, the funny thing is, as we said, you actually get the case that is assigned to your city. So we actually all the cases that would we work are in our city, and I would tell you that we've had a big uptake in reporting. And my caseload in ICAT cases, when I started eight years ago, I used to have probably two or three a year, and now I'm getting probably two or three a month. And recently, I'm at probably five or six a month. So I'm getting quite a bit, and and all of it are in the city of Wilton Manors itself.
Wow. Are they here's a double question now. A follow up to that is are they also registered sex offenders?
The funny thing is, no, majority of the ones I've had, I would say 95% are just regular people, especially after the pandemic when people were staying home that actually went out looking for this thing. So no, it's not sex
Okay.
offenders per se.
Okay. Adam, what's your experience?
All the cases that I get are usually tied to Davian somehow, and if they're not, they get sent to the jurisdiction that it belongs to. Um, I've had a couple of cases where they've been sex offenders. They've tried to hide themselves in different ways in their ability to be able to do this, but their accounts got reported to the National Center, and the cyber tip came to us, and the investigation was done that way. So
Okay.
yes, not all, but I'd probably say in all the cases that I've had, it's probably only had about 2 sex offenders that have come back to reoffend in that aspect
Okay.
that we know of.
Right. So here's something that I guess I want to ask you guys about because you said this earlier. This is sort of a follow-up question to what Franz was saying, and you also were saying it too, Adam, is that this is like really difficult. Adam doesn't like start looking at stuff or evidence or looking for evidence at the end of the day. And I would imagine also you don't want that in your head, right? When going to sleep. Franz, you talked about how, you really have to like take breaks with it. So what else do you do in terms, this isn't something you could kind of share with your spouse or family or kids or it's like, so how do you take care of yourself and your own psyche as you're doing these investigations?
It's funny, Dr. T. I wish someone would actually teach me because, be honest with you, I I take everything in and basically don't really divulge any of this to anybody. So me, you could say I'm old school style type of person, just suck it up kind of thing. Hey, this is your job, this is what you have to do, and basically, and that would be the end of it. Um, I wish I was able to. Be honest with you, I honestly don't know how I do it. The best thing that I could say is, when your grandkids come over and see me, and just seeing their faces and the smile on their faces, the hugs, and you know that you just took this bad guy off the street, and that's one less person that's gonna victimize them. So I would say that's the joy that I get from it. But in regards to, what do I do to actually decompress? I honestly don't have much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that it's hard for us to, we don't want to, we want to be, the cowboy, right? So we cowboy up and that's it. And you just keep it moving. Same thing like 9/11, the year and a half that followed and the recovery efforts. You sort of just put your hat on and you just do your job, do what you got to do. But later on, there's some casualties later on and you don't
Yes.
even realize it. It comes out sideways. I always say it's sort of like a pressure cooker. You know, um, I'm old school too, so like we use pressure cookers. I don't know what people use today, crock pots maybe, but you have to release the pressure somehow or else it explodes. So in the same way, when we're facing these, you know, it's just heinous. It's it's mind-boggling. It's crime beyond crime, right? Because this is children and they're sacred and they're innocent. So it's really important for us to either talk about it, but who do you talk about it with? Right? So Adam, I'm going to bring you on. What do you do? How do you do it? What do you suggest?
So on the short term, I try to spend a lot of time with family and kind of decompress that way. My kids play sports, so I get to watch them or go play sports with them. But every year, I'm required to go see the psychologist with the FBI to go make sure that we're in the right state of mind and that we're still able to do what we're doing. So the FBI does take care of us in that aspect by sending us to get evaluated to make sure that we're still in the right state of mind. We have the coping mechanisms to deal with what we're doing and to be able to continue doing what we're doing.
So Franz, you just gave me an idea. I'm always thinking. My brain never stops. So you gave me an idea that maybe we could offer Davie Police as a thank you, only if you're interested in it. No charge. It's free. But we have psychologists that are on staff. Um, and there's one guy in particular, Dr. James Pan, and he does this mindfulness thing, mindfulness training. So, I mean, I don't know. I have a hard time meditating because I just, and I have a real hard time with mindful practice because I'm just constantly going. But I hear that the evidence is there. The evidence suggests that it helps lower the blood pressure, that it helps the heart rate, that it's good. So, I mean, I would be, if you guys are interested, sidebar, right? Just, text me, call me, email me, and I'll see if we could maybe provide a program where we invited Davie and Wilton Manors Police who are in this look, I think that all cops need it. So it doesn't matter, like, what, if you're not a detective and you're on patrol, you're probably coming across things that are just as traumatic, over time. So maybe talk to your chief, talk to Chief Blocker, talk to Chief Poland, Chief Kinsey, see if they're interested. We'll do it for you, for sure. And I'll get in touch with Dr. Pan and see if we can maybe arrange something, because I think that we have to do something, right? I don't think that people understand what the life of a police officer is like. I don't think they get it. I don't think they understand that we really can't take that home, that we really don't want to share it with others, that we don't really trust outside people. We just don't. And we don't want that getting back to anybody, that the powers that be would think, oh, well, if listen, there's a lot of people that want this job. So if you can't handle it, we can definitely replace you. I mean, and I spent 20 years in the NYPD, and I know how it works. You just have to suck it up, basically. But that's really could be detrimental, mind, body, and spirit. Okay, so put that aside. Make a note to yourself to talk to Chief Blocker, talk to Chief Kinsey in Poland, and see if we could maybe arrange something that we would do for you when it's convenient for you. So my other question has to do with, we had a former prosecutor of human trafficking on the other day, Frank Williams, and we were talking about supply and demand. Now, I don't know if you guys remember the Nancy Reagan era of, just say no, and, like the educating about drugs, and yet drugs still are with us. Why? Why are they with us? And why are they coming into this country in such great volume? Because we still want it. And in the same way, crimes against children, there's a supply demand going on. Would you agree? I mean, if obviously somebody's, whatever it is that they're peddling, somebody's selling, right? What do you guys have to say? I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this supply demand problem.
I agree with you 110% with that. With that said, I feel like that's why we have to educate our kids, and especially with the sexting that goes on within the high school and also middle schools. Um, we talk about the two different type of sextortions. So we have the sextortion which uses all sorts of bribery, or they're doing it so they could get more explicit material from these young kids, and then eventually they would sell it. So obviously the demand is actually there, and that's how they would get the supply, especially new supply, is through basically these young kids. And that's why I'm so big with in ICAC. What I do is I do my best to go out there and discuss it with our middle school and also our elementary school kids when I have a chance, just to go out there to explain to them and give them that a little assertiveness, how to say no, how to not get involved in sexting and everything. So I would definitely agree with you that it's out there. The demand is there.
Adam?
Yeah, so when I do my internet safety presentations, I tell the kids always are only thinking about today. They don't think about their future. And they don't understand that once they post something on the internet, it's out there forever, regardless of whether they think it's deleted or not. And they don't think about that, how it's going to affect them when they go apply for a college or job, how that image or video is going to pop back up. The other thing that becomes a problem too is when you have an enticement case of a child where, the bad guys offering them the world, and some kid is getting this brand new iPhone, whatever, 16 Pro Max with all the bells and whistles, and mom and dad aren't buying it for him. That kid may fall victim to what the bad guy wants simply because they're getting the latest and greatest toy that they weren't going to get from their parents. So the supply is there because the bad guy is always trying to entice the child to do something that they shouldn't be doing.
So here's what I want to ask you guys, and I think that that's great because I also want to, at the end, when we're right before we go to any questions that we might have from our students, is like some strategies and ideas for parents to be paying attention to. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up was something that happened in 2019, and I'm sure you guys are aware of it. It was this online, well, there is an online gaming app called Discord. Did you hear about this in 2019 over in St. Petersburg? That Discord was used to lure teens into trafficking. And the bottom line is police arrested 7 suspects in a major human trafficking bust that involved teenage victims. They found the teenage boys in a filthy trailer in St. Petersburg. One had been there for a year, used as a sex slave, and the other boy was lured from Louisiana. So I bring this up because this is certainly internet crime against children, and this is in the internet and software and our technology of 2024 is hurting us as in terms of law enforcement and winning this battle. Have you guys heard about this particular case? And if so, did you want to comment on it? If not, how do gaming apps that kind of chat with people from all over, how do they play a role in internet crimes against children? Franz, you want to start us off?
Sure. I say social media as a whole plays a big part in it, because obviously when these kids are online talking to people that they do not know, and back in the days when I was in school teaching as a school resource officer, we talk about stranger danger, and we talk about a physical appearance of a stranger. Now when we have social media, there's no real, you can talk to anybody. And I think that's what the kids are saying. That's what they think. And they see everything at face value. Whoever they're speaking to, they assume that's the same person on the other side of the computer. And obviously, majority of the time, that's not the case. I would say you have to open communication with your child, asking the hard questions to your child, asking them things like, have you ever received nude pic? Have you sent nude pic? Just the hard questions that parents basically don't feel like they should be asking, and that's the questions that need to be asked. That's basically all I have with that.
Okay. Adam, any ideas about this these gaming apps that chat with strangers?
I mean, any game that has the chat function causes or any app for that matter that has the chat function in it, causes the possibility of the child to be enticed to do something that they shouldn't do. And unfortunately, these bad guys are out there. Every time the new app comes out, they're learning the app just like the kids are learning the app. So they're out there practicing and trying to figure out how to get it into it and how to start talking to these kids. One thing I suggest for parents when I do my parent presentation is at the end of the night, those devices go in a central location, similar to like a charging station in a living room, and the kids go to bed. They shouldn't be using them as alarm clocks. They should be sitting in a general room, like a kitchen, dining room, somewhere like that. That gives the parents the opportunity to go through the device while the kid's sleeping and without them interfering. And they can take a look and see what their kids are doing and try to figure out what their kids are into. And if they detect something, then they can call the police ahead of time before the kids get involved and delete things.
I'm
So,
glad.
go ahead,
I'm
Franz.
Adam, I'm glad you said that because a biggest thing that we've always had is expectation of privacy. A lot of parents think that their children have this expectation of privacy on their cell phone, and that is not the case.
Not
As
at
long
all.
as and that's including their room also. And I worked with gangs for a while too when I was in as a school resource officer. And majority of these parents, if they would walk inside the kid's bedroom and actually just look around and see the gang paraphernalia that's basically everywhere. If they would have done that, they could have prevented that kid from entering a gang. And it's the same concept with the phone. If they would understand the lingo that goes on with these apps and understand the abbreviations and understand that, and they have the ability to go on their kid's phone and actually look through it and don't think and let them get upset. I'm paying the bill here, so you could get upset all you want to. I'm looking through this phone. And if they do that, that's that hard, tough love that needs to happen, especially in this day and age with social media and cell phones.
Well, I'm so glad you guys are saying this. I'm gonna really sound old now. I'm probably, and I could guarantee that I'm older than both of you. But I I see, and I don't know if you see this, that parents are like they want to be popular with their kids. Like they don't want to make those hard calls, like you're saying, like what you're describing right now, Adam, about phones away, no expectation of privacy in your room. I agree with you 1000%. But not many parents are going in this direction. They're coming away from like my generation, how we were raised, which was, you know, you didn't say. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe it depends. Like I came from an Italian family, and they they're not playing around. I mean, children should be seen and not heard was like kind of what I heard a lot growing up. So, what do you think? You think that parents have a major responsibility here? You know, it's not just the police always have to clean up everything, right? It's proactive parenting, my opinion, but I'm not the ones doing the work. Adam, what do you think?
So we had an ICAT commander say that you wouldn't just give the keys to the car to your child after just getting a driver's license and tell them have fun, would you? You would take them for training. You would take them for driving lessons. You would make sure that they understand the rules of the road. It's the same thing with the phone and anything connected to the internet. You can't just hand them the phone and say, "Here you go, have fun with it." You've got to teach them what they can and can't do, and what their boundaries are, and what they are allowed to do, and what they aren't allowed to do, and making sure that they understand that when something does go wrong, who the right people are that they're supposed to be contacting, like the parents or law enforcement or teachers and or the trusted adults that they're supposed to be talking to. So
Right.
that's a big thing for them.
I like that. I like that. You wouldn't just say, here's the keys. Absolutely. Yep, 100%. Franz, what do you think about this parenting as sort of a prevention?
I'm with you guys 100%. I mean, that plays a big part, and that's the way I raised my kid. And I would think that tough love is real. if you don't actually, we talk about the expectation of privacy for a minute, if you don't actually take a look at what goes on the phone, next thing you know, you're having the police knocking at your door because one child decided to send your kid something and he decided to send it out. Now he is actually distributing child pornography or vice versa, accepting it. So, and that's the part that I feel like the education and talking to your kids, explaining all that, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, I could talk to you both all night long, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring on our project manager. We have three project managers, so but one of them has lost their voice, so two of them are going to share some of the questions. So I'm going to remove my spotlight when they come on. There's Cameron with the first question.
Okay, my first question for you guys is from Tia Scott. Her question was, can you still get a job in law enforcement if you have priorly been arrested?
I'll answer that. I do all our polygraph, which is our voice stress analyzer for our police department, and every police department is going to be different in regards to arrest. But it's all depending. If we're talking about a felony, usually there's no exceptions for felonies or DUI. But if it's a misdemeanor and we're talking about it happened a while ago, and you could actually put in your application and basically say why what you've learned from it, and I've learned from my mistake and all that, I would say they would definitely hire you with an arrest. So it's depend on the arrest.
Okay, was there any other question, Cameron?
That's it for Zoom for right now.
That's it for Zoom. Okay. What about YouTube? Annie?
Still checking to see if there's any messages on the YouTube. Give me like 2 seconds.
I think there are. I think there's two, and I actually did see one in the webinar, but I guess it went away. Here it is. Can you still get a job? Oh, you already said that, huh? Getting a job. I just wanted to say thank you guys for coming out tonight. That was Matthew. Okay, so that wasn't a question. But there is something in the YouTube chat. Let's see. Jonathan has a question and Jen has a question.
You want to take Jonathan's question and I'll take Jen's?
I was hoping you'd do both. Are you able to show us your beautiful self?
I am, but my Wi-Fi is not showing the comments. I can't see the questions yet.
Oh, you can't see it? Okay. All right, that's fine. So we can at least we can hear you. So if you don't mind, pitch these questions. No?
Well, we have one. Okay,
Okay,
yeah, we have
there
one
you are.
that just came in here.
Yeah.
From Ebony actually in the webinar. Ebony said, "Thank you guys for being here. Are you willing to discuss one of your cases that was prosecuted successfully?"
So, I mean, that's I understand that if you can't, but if you can, great. So it's basically to talk about one of your cases that was solved and received a conviction. Annie? Was that the question?
They didn't specify in the question, but
Okay.
so it would really be up
Okay.
to
All right, cool.
whatever you guys would be comfortable answering.
Yeah. Franz? Or Adam? Adam, go. Go ahead.
I have a case I could talk about. So this was actually a case that came in from Road Patrol of a minor child. I believe at the time she was about 14 years of age. She was reporting that one of the adults in the neighborhood was trying to get her to produce sexually explicit material. In exchange, this is a little bit dated, so don't mind the technology, but in exchange for a brand new iPod. So she in turn produced those videos and was supposed to get a brand new iPod, except the suspect never came forward with that. They reported it to police. We were able to, I was able to do my investigation, determine who the suspect was. A search warrant was done at his residence where he was taken into custody. But in the residence, it was kind of weird. There was pictures in the suspect had a son. And that at that time, the son was about 15 years old. And there were pictures all over the house, like you would normally hang family pictures, except a lot of these pictures were of the son and a girl about the same age, but the camera angles were mostly like from the ground up. So like almost like an upskirt picture. Um, I was able to identify the girl in the pictures, and she at the time was living in Orlando. So I contacted our task force up there in Orlando and was able to get them to go by and talk to her. They showed her a picture of the suspect, and at that point she had said, "Yeah, I remember him. That's the guy that molested me when I was a kid." She had never disclosed that to anybody, and she had never made any disclosures prior to that meeting with the detective. And she wound up giving a forensic interview about what had happened, and he wound up not going to trial. But for a very long time, he'll be in jail. So it was a interesting. That wasn't the reason we were there. We weren't there at that house for that girl. We were there for a different girl, and we wound up identifying another victim at that time. So that was very rewarding.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Franz, do you have any that you might be able to?
Yes, actually, I'm going to give you one short one in a kind of lengthy one, but the short one is this young lady. She's 6 years old, 6 or 7 years old. She's in kindergarten, and she just loved TikTok, and she decided that she's gonna do all the TikTok dances for the camera. So she would get out the shower. She sometimes have no shirt on. She do her dance and post it. Mom never knew about it, and mom had access to her phone, but never looked through it. Mom didn't even know this 7-year old had TikTok. One of the videos that she posted actually had her with no bra and underwear on, and a sexual predator was started selling that particular video that this young lady posted. I had to identify her, which didn't take long at all, because she attended our elementary school. And by the time I went over there and talked to her, I spoke to her in front of mom, and mom was basically just terrified. She did not know that her daughter was doing that, and the little girl did not till this day. She didn't. She was asking mom, "What did I do wrong?" And what did I do wrong? So we did not identify. Well, we did identify the sex offender that was actually trading that particular video that the little girl posted herself.
Wow. So Annie, let me ask you a question. There you are. Did we get all of the YouTube, or was there another?
I have another question from the YouTube actually. So
Excellent.
somebody asks, do your departments offer in-house mental health services?
Who wants to answer that?
So ours, Davie Police Department does not. We do have an EAP program that if an employee assistance program that if we needed to, we could always reach out to that. My command staff is very supportive. So if the time came to need to talk to somebody, I am pretty confident that they would make those arrangements without blinking an eye or giving me a problem. So I don't see that ever being an issue if it is needed.
Great. Franz? Wilton Manors
Um,
is so small.
the funny thing is, Adam said how the FBI actually have him once a month. I'm not sure at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Adam. Actually go and talk to somebody. And as in Dr. T, as you mentioned, police officers not all the time want to step up and said, I need help. So needless to say, our department have the peer counseling, and we also have people that we can go to. But none of the police officers actually take it to heart and actually step up and say that they need the help. So almost seem like it needs to be a mandatory thing for them to actually go out, talk to somebody and keep your psyche straight by yourself, or mandatory, instead of them actually just stepping up and saying, I need the help or I'm going to get the help.
Right, right. See, Annie, anything else? Any follow-up?
We do have one more question from the YouTube.
Please.
So this is just kind of relating more to like when you guys are doing the kind of like the detective side and just kind of researching when it comes to cases for child exploitation. So they asked, does the internet provider provide information from the dark web or just kind of like private sites in general, you know, just pretty much like how private is when someone's like, oh, I'm on a private tab. And I guess just kind of what kind of collaboration is there between internet providers and law enforcement when conducting an investigation for a case like this?
Adam?
So as far as the dark web, we do not get a lot of referrals from there unless somebody's on there and finds something explicit and reports it through either the police or through the FBI at that point. And then as far as reporting, I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
The second part was just kind of like what can you describe kind of the collaboration between law enforcement and internet providers when necessary to aid in cases related to child exploitation? So whether that's search history, messages on just like internet, things like that.
So there are some internet service providers that are law enforcement friendly, and then there are a majority of them that are not. They will we are required in most cases, well, let me rephrase that. The internet service provider will notify the bad guy that we are doing an investigation unless we give them a court order that says you're not allowed to do that. So that's a deterrence, not a deterrence, but that's a downside for us because they're more supportive of the bad guy's rights than protecting a child. So we have to get a court order in order to tell them, hey, you're not allowed to do that for a period of time. So most internet service providers are not cooperative when it comes to that. They are cooperative in giving us information once we serve them with the proper legal process. So usually it's either a subpoena or a search warrant or a court order that we have to give them in order to get the data from them that we're looking for. But those they have to either cooperate with that or show up in court and explain to a judge why they're not cooperating with it. So that's that. Most of the time, if not all, they're usually cooperating with those court orders and subpoenas.
Franz, you want to piggyback?
No, I agree with Adam 100%. Except there's a few internet service providers, not even or social media sites who actually report it. So the relationship is good in that point. So they have been reporting it a lot, which is good. And I would take this time to also tell people need to report it. So when you see it on social media, you need to go find that button that says report this picture or report this statement. Make the report ASAP so they can understand that it's inappropriate.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Annie. Thank you so much. And Franz and Adam, I'm going to just bring you on for one more time to sort of, if you had one thing to say to parents tonight, or one thing to say to kids if they happen to be watching, but mostly to parents, what would you say?
I would start with telling, if we're talking about a person who's requesting inappropriate pictures, explain to them that it is not okay. For the people who are sending it, remember it's against the law. So as long as they understand that, and for the people who are sharing it, it's the same thing. It is a gross violation of trust to actually share pictures that someone basically allowed you to have access to. That's the 2, 3 thing I would definitely tell them.
Great. Thank you. Adam?
For the parents, I would just tell them to be on top of their children and make sure that they're going through those devices, set up boundaries, make sure that there's rules. The devices aren't allowed in bathrooms. They're not allowed in bedrooms with closed doors, things like that, to make sure that they have an understanding of what's going on. Whether it's a device, a mobile device or a computer, none of that should be in a bedroom, let alone a bathroom, with a closed door, because that's where the opportunities come. But the parents need to be on top of their children, and there is no right to privacy. You need to protect, you're doing what you can to protect your children by making sure you're on top of them and going through everything and protecting them in the long run.
Excellent, excellent. And there was one last question that is really a good one. Annie, do you want to just say it?
Yep, no problem. So this question comes from Christopher, who said, while you mentioned that most of your cases don't link to a registered sex offender, have you seen any trends amongst your offenders, such as themselves being victims of sexual assault when they were young, or just other kind of trends that you've seen?
No, our offenders, not so much victimized as a kid. Something happened and they found themselves either attracted to this or doing what they wanted to do, and kind of like a drug where they're addicted to it, and therefore they kept going after it and after it through the internet to try to find it. So once they've offended, they know that they're being watched for the most part. There's usually not an issue, at least in our city, with the ones that we have. That we stay on top of them. We visit them every 3 months to make sure that they're where they're supposed to be and doing what they're supposed to do. So there is some checks and balances, so they know that we're coming at some point. So we tend to not have too many that reoffend. So that's a positive, but they are still out there.
Franz?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. The way I would answer that is it depends on this interviewing process. Interviewing process in these type of cases are huge, and that's where you really have to have that verbal judo or gift the gab, and not showing that. Also, that's the grossest thing you've ever seen, and how it doesn't affect you or doesn't offend you, and help them to see that you are on the same level. And the more you talk to them, the more they earn that trust. It could be a 6 to 10, 12-hour interview, the more they'll tell you things. So I say one long interview that I did, eventually that did come out that this person was a victim and somehow find himself attracted to kids. And that was a really weird case, and all that came out during the interviewing process.
Well, listen, guys, I thank you so much. I know that you're not getting paid for this, and I know that you didn't have to give up your Thursday night for us, but I appreciate it, and it's not lost on me that we are grateful for you taking the time to do it. So don't forget, ask Chief Blocker, ask Chief Kinsey. Do they want a mindfulness workshop? Free, easy. Donuts will be involved, perhaps, although sugar is probably not good for us. But we'll see. We'll see. You guys just get in touch with me. The invitation is there for both of you, both of your departments. Thanks again so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate you both, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks. So we have a few more. We have a few more investigations with Dr. T for this semester. Next week, we have, guess what? Unfound is back. So we have Ed, but this time, instead of an anatomy of a crime, of a missing persons case, he's going to do a real case, a real missing persons case that he's been investigating, and that'll be fun. So that's next week. Then we've got the 21st, and we've got Homeboy. Homeboy Industries, if you remember back a few seasons ago, we had Father Gregory Boyle with us. He's the founder, the Jesuit priest, who's the founder and the executive director of Homeboy Industries. But this time we're going to have a homeboy and a homegirl on, and I cannot wait for that. That is going to be so super exciting. I'll miss Father Boyle, but I'm thrilled that we have these two homies that are coming on. And then we have Thanksgiving, and then we have finals, and then if you could believe it, the semester is over already. Goes just like that. So thank you, Annie. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you so much to Eddie, my students behind the scenes, my students, the PhD students and the undergrads. Please, please, please email me so you can get credit for tonight. And everybody, please stay safe out there. Have a good night.